All right. Hello, and welcome to the first episode of the 2024 season of the New Year's Six podcast. Back and better than ever. Today, I'll be starting off my conference preview videos for 2024 season. Starting off in the Power Four with the ACC this year. So, looking forward to getting that underway and getting these started off over the next couple of weeks before the season kicks off. From a format perspective, just how I reviewed these teams, I just start at the bottom of the conference. Team I think is going to come in last, and then I go all the way up to the top, and I call out a player on offense and defense for every team that I think is due for a big year. So with that said, let's get the ACC started. New look ACC this year. We got 3 new teams in there with the addition of Cal, Stanford, and SMU. So Cal and Stanford coming in from the recently deceased Pac-12, and then SMU coming out from the American. So with that in mind, kicking off with the team I think is going to come last this year. It's going to be one of our new ones. It's going to be one of our our new teams in the conference, and that's going to be Stanford. Stanford had a rough year last year, 3-9. Bottom of the pack in the Pac-12, are one of the worst teams in the Pac-12. I don't expect it to get better soon. Not saying it can't, not saying they won't, but at this current place in time, I don't think Stanford is equipped to make a big run in the conference right now. I think there's still a lot to be done by Coach Taylor there. Still a lot, of opportunity for Stanford to improve as a team, but I think it's going to take a little bit of time. There's going to be some growing pains, and this year will be, one of those for Coach Taylor. So just looking at the depth chart real quick, on offense, I do think there's actually some key pieces on both sides of the ball. On the offense, starting on the offensive line, since we are going to be reviewing those this year. In the past, I have not done O-line reviews, but got to throw them in the mix. Games are won in the trenches, right? So the O-line actually think is going to be the best part of this offense right now. There's some pretty key contributors coming back. You have Levi Rogers there at center. That's a big contribution. Connor McLaughlin on the right tackle. Another senior there. Even Trevor Mayberry has a good deal of experience under his belt. So the offensive line in regards to where it ranks in the conference would probably be around middle of the pack. And that's really what you're looking for from an offensive line of a team that's growing and a team that's developing. The receiver room, again, I think it's going to be on the lower end of the conference right now, but there's still some star players. Apologies for the pronunciation. Elik Iomaner, I think he's a 1,000-yard receiver in the past. There's no reason he can't be the number one guy for this team again this year. And then I would expect a little bit of development of a guy like Tiger Bachmeier as well, as that strong number 2. Even Sam Roche as a tight end is a good option for this for the Stanford offense. And they're running a multiple spread, so as a result of that, you'll have receivers in the mix, you'll have running backs in the mix, you'll have your QB in the mix, everything like that. It's going to run through quite a few people. Speaking of your quarterback, Ashton Daniels, I'm looking for that step this year. I don't think it's happened yet, but this is a player that I think needs to step up and be the leader for this team. I don't think it has happened yet. I think the tools are there for it to happen, but at this current time, I don't have him as someone in the upper half of the conference, for example. So if Stanford is going to be successful, it's going to require him to take a big step as well, alongside Cedric Irvin, your running back there. So if those two in particular take that next big step, on the offensive side of the ball, maybe Stanford wins some games that they have no business winning. But as far as we're concerned, offensively, it's really the O-line that's adequate and decent, and the rest are pieces that are a little bit more questionable. The defensive side of the ball, I think, is where I have a little bit more faith in Stanford. I think they're going to be a defensive first team. The linebacker room is going to be dynamic, especially knowing that it's a 2-4-5 defense. I think your linebacker room is definitely a positive addition to this squad. Gathan Bernadelle is your leader there, and if you have that one guy like right in the middle that can command the field, you will win some games and you will make some stops. I think it's Gathan Bernadelle at the linebacker room. I think and Tristan Sinclair next to him. I think those two are pretty key contributors are in that linebacker room, and they are people that I think are going to help Stanford evolve as a program, even if they are on the older side. I think the linebacker room as a whole is in the upper half of the conference. That speaks volumes, knowing the quality of opponent that Stanford will be playing week in and week out. But I think the linebacker room is not going to be a problem on the defense. DB room is about average. Colin Wright is definitely someone to watch out for as a cornerback. That's your lockdown corner. You have a lockdown safety in the form of Mitch Liegber. Colin Wright's definitely an interesting one to watch, especially since he isn't still technically an underclassman, he's a redshirt sophomore. So you have your key players in the secondary that are there. I just really want to see the players around those two start to develop some more. And then the D-line, they have their moments. I think it's going to be a little bit less seasoned compared to the rest of the conference, but there's definitely some potential players in terms of like Anthony Franklin and Wilfredo Abar that can rise to the occasion and can step up for Stanford this year. So with that, on the offensive side of the ball, my breakout player is going to be Cedric Irvin. So picked up a rushing touchdown against Arizona, had 5.5 yards per carry against USC. So we try to look at like the little moments over the course of his younger career, and then he was a true freshman last year. I think he was a 3-star, low 4-star, depending on your ranking, depending on your recruiting surface. But the guy has moves. The guy has the ability to step up and be that next great Stanford running back. And I did clip this from his game against Arizona. There's not going to be any sound, but just take a look at what he was able to do against Arizona last year. And this was a quality Arizona team, remind you. So get back, snaps, breaks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tackles, and is off to the races. I think he gets stopped down at like the 10. Okay, close to the 5. So, I mean, that immediate contact that is made and that immediate ability to shake it off. Again, this was a quality Arizona team. This was a top 25 team for the majority of the year, and you wouldn't have known that seeing that type of run. So, it's opportunities like that, and I guess they were a little bit more limited for him last year than in the past, because I think they still had EJ Smith, over there. But those flashes of what Irvin could do, and those little moments like that go a very, very long way to building the program up, to building the running game up. Because once that running game is established, it will open up the receivers. It will create some flexibility on the line. It changes responsibilities. So the fact that Irvin can do those things, now we just need to see him do it consistently over the course of a full season. I think he's got it in him to do it. And I think this is the year he shows the rest of the ACC that they need to be on notice. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, I will say it's Wilfredo Abar, one of your edge rushers there on the D line. I don't have any tape on him, sorry, but the one thing that I've seen so far, picked up a sack against Washington, and again, it's a Washington team that made it to the national championship. So clearly, high caliber play. I don't know who the quarterback was at the time. I would imagine it was Michael Penix. And if that's the case, you just sacked a first-round NFL draft pick as a rotational player. That's a big chip on your shoulder. Had a 6 tackle, and that includes assist on tackles against Cal. Cal was a solid team coming over. And it's a big rivalry game. It's when you step up for. So those two things combine for an opportunity for Abar to step up to help be one of the anchors on the D line, help be one of those guys that step up and create a presence for Stanford, especially knowing that they run 2-4-5 defense. It's going to be on him to be one of those guys that makes an impact. So I'm going to give it to Abar there. as your defensive standout player or defensive breakout player for a Stanford team that I will think, unfortunately, struggles in their transition year in the ACC. So with that, going on to my next team, this is not going to be a newbie. This is going to be a team we've seen for quite a while in the ACC, but we've seen them, unfortunately, on the wrong side of the conference, and that'll be Virginia. I think it's do or die time for Tony Elliott, and unfortunately, I just don't think it comes together, especially when you see what's going on in the DMV and you see the development of those teams long term. Like you see, there's a lot of hype around Virginia Tech right now, and we'll get to them down the line. You'll see it around North Carolina. You'll see it around Maryland. The teams, even West Virginia, who's propped up last year. There's a lot of hype around all of the big programs around Virginia. So they can't afford to fall off the way they've fallen off. And I think, unfortunately, it's just going to be another year of that. And unfortunately, it may be the last year for Tony Elliott if it continues to go that way. They had a rough year last year, 3-9, 2-6 in conference. Pro style offense and a 4-2-5 defense, but they do mix it up. So, if you look at the depth chart of what Virginia is working with now, those gold numbers there. This is all. These are all provided by. Let me get the website here. Our Lads. They have all the depth charts for every single team. So if you want to see the team evolve over the course of summer, check out Our Lads. Pick your team. And these depth charts are all based on the time of this recording. So as soon as I snipped it, it's in there. We're good. But if you look at everything in gold, every one of those is a transfer from somewhere or a true freshman, but we would say FR. But everything in gold is a transfer. So Virginia's got quite a lot of new faces on the offense and the defense. Especially that secondary. I think they got 3 out of 5. Receiver room's looking new. So quite a few different options there. Looking at the O-line first, you do get Drake Metcalf coming in from USC, who was at previously Stanford. I think the O-line is solid. I think it's going to be roughly average within the conference. There's some good quality starts, even outside of Metcalf for a second. Look at the left side of the line. Mikhail Boley and Noah Josie are a good 1-2 punch on the left side. They will keep Colandrea protected. And I think that goes a very long way. I like Brian Stevens on the tackle there, or on the on the right guard there. So the line itself will have some quality players. There's some returning production that is coming back, and I think it will go a long way for Virginia. So I think that O-line will be solid. The receiver room I think is going to be below average. Malachi Fields coming back is a saving grace for this team. I think he's due for another big year. Now you got some gambles, some guys that are coming in to boost their career here. Trell Harris comes in from Kent State. Chris Tyree comes in from Notre Dame. In the tight end room, Say Jimenez comes in from Clemson. So my read on the situation is, if you're coming from Notre Dame or Clemson to Virginia, it's because you need a fresh start and it's not ready to, it hasn't really been working out for you. Kent State's a little different. That's, group of 5 school. But for those other guys, they're looking to make a splash and looking to make an impact. This is the type of team to do it on. So if one of those guys has a big year, then Virginia could turn some heads and maybe do some things that we're not expecting them to do. Kind of the same deal with quarterback. Anthony Colandrea is a young guy, true sophomore, played as a true freshman last year. So we'll see how he develops in year 2. We'll see how the line can protect him, how the receivers can get open for him, how they can establish a run game, anything along those lines. But I'm not expecting a lot out of Colandrea right now because we haven't seen a lot so far. And then the run game, I think, is outside of in the skill position players. I think Kobe Pace is the answer for Virginia. They should be a run first offense if they are going to be successful. And having a pro style offense does require a good running back. I think Pace is a solid running back for what he's into, what the situation entails. I'd say it's probably slightly below average within the conference. And I think of what we're looking at is the highest quality room of of any skill position for Virginia. On the defensive side of the ball, this is where, again, kind of like Stanford, I think this is where Virginia wins games. And I honestly think that their defense could be pretty elite within the conference. The DB room is a big one there. So you got, 3 transfers coming in. Kempton Shine is from Eastern Michigan. Kendron Smith, that cornerback there, is from Penn. And then Corey Thomas Jr. is from Akron. So all guys that are looking to make that jump. And that doesn't include the players you have coming back. Like, it doesn't include Jonas Sankar, right? So you have a lockdown player at the safety position. At the corner, I would lean on Kendron Smith probably as the number 1 guy coming from Penn. But there are a lot of pieces there. And generally speaking, I would put this DB room from a returning production standpoint as one of the best in the conference. And I know it's a tough thing to say knowing how Virginia has struggled in the past, but I don't think the DB room has been an issue. The linebacker room, very similar. It's a 1-2 punch with Cam Robinson and James Jackson. No issues there with either of them. 2 quality linebackers that can see the middle of the field and play and run, play and pass, do whatever they got to do. A top 5 linebacker room in the ACC. And then if you're looking at the D line, this is where I think it's the weakest part, but it's still pretty average. And I think if you went 3-9 last year, you will take an average D line. When you have a player like Cam Butler, when you have a player like Jameer Carter, 2 quality players up front that can create pressure. Cam Butler had an 8-sack season. What's to say you can't do that again or hit double digits? So I think the quality of player is there, especially on the defensive side of the ball. If I'm Virginia, I expect the wins to be low scoring. I expect them to be more so like time crunch games where you want to eat up as much time as offense and get the defense as many 3-and-out opportunities as possible. But the possibilities are there. I don't think they're going to happen. I'm not rooting against Virginia per se. I'm not rooting for them. I just, I'm calling it how I see it. I don't think this is going to be a fantastic year for Virginia from top to bottom. But that being said, it can be a fantastic year for a couple of these players, one on offense, one on defense. On offense, I'm going to roll with Sage Ennis. So again, transferred in from Clemson. Limited playing time there. Again, looking to make a name for himself at another Power 4 conference. Notable kind of stat sheet, showcase was a 28-yard catch against NC State. Can't clip it, can't find it anywhere. But it's the type of play like that, especially in a tight end role where I'm sure he's going to be used more in a blocking capacity. But if you can establish yourself as a pass threat, it opens up the field for a younger quarterback. So I'm looking for Sage Ennis to have a big year. I'm looking for him to evolve as a tight end. And, this is his last year of eligibility. So I'm looking forward to seeing him make the most of it. And on the defensive side of the ball, going back to the D line, Ben Smiley III. So, he's been in the stat line, or he's been in the stat sheet now for a little bit, picked up a sack against North Carolina and Georgia Tech. So opponents that, from a talent perspective, are higher than Virginia. So he's able to, one of those is Drake May, right? A top 5 NFL pick. If you're able to put him in the ground, that means you're a quality D lineman. And then stuck his paw up against Tennessee. It's that first game of the year last year. Virginia got blown out, but he's making the plays that he needs to. I don't know if that was against Joe Milton. I don't know if that was against Nico. In garbage time, but plays a play and batting down the ball makes it a lot easier on the team around you, right? So I would expect Smiley to evolve into less of a rotational player and more of a mainstay for Virginia, and see that evolution as not a premier, but a quality defensive lineman that Virginia is desperately in need of. So next up, we do have another program within the ACC, another mainstay, a team that is undergoing through a little bit of a change in identity right now, a little bit of a metamorphosis on their end. And I think it's going to take a little bit of time for them to evolve. I think it's going to take a little bit of time for them to step up to the plate. But the next team I've got in 15th place, we're going Duke. The Manny Diaz era has arrived to Durham, and comes in as a quality defensive coordinator from Penn State. You may know Manny Diaz's former Miami head coach. Didn't work out there. Looking for redemption in over at Durham. Duke did have a good year. It's what got Mike Elko hired away by Texas A&M, but the defense was present for sure. That first win against Clemson on Labor Day kind of set the pace and set the tone for what the rest of the year was going to look like. Took Notre Dame down to the wire, and these are the teams that Duke historically does not have a chance against. So when you're beating one and then Riley Leonard goes down against the other, it shows that you're ready to evolve as a program and take the next step. I think it's going to take a little bit of time. I don't think they're going to go back to last year's numbers, but I'm not saying it is impossible for that to happen this year. I just think it takes a little bit of time with the amount of talent that they've lost across the board here. So on the offensive side of the ball, you do have a couple transfers, but let's go position group by position group. The O-line is questionable. And I think it's also just because that big empty hole, I can't account for that. So I'm grading them on a 4-person line compared to a 5-person line. But as of right now, I got a lot of questions about who's going to step up for this team. Really the only one that I'm pretty confident in would be Justin Pickett there at the guard. But, it's because he's coming back and he has some starts under his belt. But the rest of the team, as far as I'm concerned, is very, very young or very unknown. I don't know how Jack Purcell, blends in as a grad transfer from UPenn. So just stuff like that goes a long way. That consistency in the O-line is going to open things up. And right now, I haven't personally seen it. It can take some time. It can take a little bit, but right now I'm not too confident in the offensive line. That being said, I'm not confident in the quarterback either. Malik Murphy comes in from Texas. He's shown us splashes of what he could do, especially at Texas, but he's just been passed up. It's still Quinn Ewers' team out there. Arch Manning waiting in the wings, and there wasn't a spot for Malik Murphy anymore. But he is, he's over at Duke now, ready to, establish himself as a starter. Just haven't seen a lot of action for him yet. So it's that small sample size which provides that question mark for me. But he's got 2 years or what? No, he's a redshirt sophomore, right? So he's got 3 years left to prove himself as the guy for Duke. The running back room is pretty solid. Jacquez Moore can be that guy for Duke and help establish the offense early on in the year. It's the type of thing that you want to lean on, especially with a new quarterback and a line that's a little bit inexperienced. So I think Jacquez Moore is a pretty average to slightly below average running back in the conference, which I think for where you're at is good enough. But the receiver room is fantastic. Great looking receiver room there. Jordan Moore comes back ready to be the number one guy. Samir Haggins is back as the number 2. So you got quality options there. You brought in Javon Harvey from Old Dominion. He's ready to step up and be elite. You have a red zone threat as a tight end in Nicky Dalmolin. So you have all of these quality players at the receiver room. I have no issue. I got no concerns of Malik Murphy finding his targets on the in the receiver room. It's just can the offensive line give him enough time to identify and get the pass off? If they can, Duke is going to exceed expectations. I got too many concerns on the offensive line to lock it in at this point. On the defensive side of the ball, I think this is where Duke wins their games. The D-line is top 5 in the conference as far as I'm concerned. You bring in Kendi Charles from Liberty, and then you pair him up with Leslie Williams there on the on the end. You got that good 1-2 punch. Aaron Hall and Michael Reese kind of fill in, those gaps. But, I think the D-line itself from a returning production standpoint is very, very good. So I will give Duke their flowers in knowing that the D-line is high quality. Linebacker room is potentially number one in all of the conference right now. So you got Trey Freeman and Nick Morse both coming back, both staying on for their new coach. And again, quality, players that can play back in coverage, that can get up on the line, whatever they need to do. I think Nick Morse likes to play up a little bit more, and Trey Freeman can play back a little bit more in coverage. I think that dynamic duo is going to be big for Duke in Manny Diaz's first year. And then the DB room, above average, right? I got, not a whole lot of concerns on that front. If we look at who's coming in or who's staying in place, Jalen Stinson at the nickelback is someone to watch out for. Chandler Rivers at the corner, Terry Moore, Joshua Pickett. There's quality all over the secondary. So it's kind of similar to Virginia for Duke, where it's like if they do win, it's going to be low scoring. If they do win, it's going to be through defensive power. I believe in Duke's offense a little bit more, which is why they're ahead. But as far as I'm concerned, Duke just needs a little bit more time, especially developing the offensive line. So speaking of which, my breakout players, you got to pick someone on the offensive line if you think one of them is ready to step up. And I'm going to pick Matt Craycraft. That's the center there. If he can establish that chemistry with Malik Murphy, if he can get those starts under his belt, one of the younger guys on the O-line hasn't seen a lot of action, probably a lot of special teams, if any. So if he's ready to become the everyday starter and he can step up the plate and protect Malik Murphy and establish some holes up the middle for the run game, then Duke will be in a good spot. But I knew I had to pick someone on the O-line just with the inexperience. Someone's going to have to step up for Duke. And I believe in Matt Craycraft the most, just under center and leading the way for that O-line. On the defensive side of the ball, it is going to be, apologies if I say the name here wrong, Placide Jungusungu. So I think from that angle, we've seen what he's able to do in limited capacity so far. Tackles against North Carolina, UConn, and Northwestern. UNC is that rivalry game. Both were quality teams last year. UConn is UConn. So take it with a grain of salt. And then Northwestern shocked the world with their performances last year. So it's a mixed bag. It showcases that it's more so limited opportunities, potentially special teams, but that the chances have been there. And now as a safety, the chances will be there to establish himself even further, establish himself as one of those lockdown safeties right next to Terry Moore in the center of the DB room that is a little bit younger. They're not seniors yet. So he can come back next year with even more experience under his belt and lead this team defensively moving forward. All right. So the next squad up on the list, team that had a little bit of promise last year. I know they're looking for more this year. And I think this is just more so the consequence of having a brutal schedule. That's going to be Tech. It's going to Georgia Tech. Probably the team in the ACC I root for the most just by virtue of common enemies. I got my Gator gear on today because, we're talking about some scrub schools in the other parts of the state. I got to rep my guys. But, Georgia Tech, plays FSU hard. They play Miami hard. So, any team that does that and plays my enemies, I'll be in your corner. So I'm like that for Tech. I'm like that for Clemson, so on and so forth. But it's always nice. And Tech plays Georgia too. So, always going to root for them there. But I think, unfortunately, it is going to be a step back for Georgia Tech this year. They did go above 500. They did go to a bowl game last year under Brett Key. Kind of won the program over in his interim season. And that was his first full year this past year. But I do think from a skill perspective, they're just not at the level of the rest of the conference yet. They have a good-looking pro-style offense, 4-2-5 defense, and we'll get into the specifics of it a little bit more. So just looking at the offense real quick, we go couple teams ago with Duke were quite a few transfers. Now we're at Georgia Tech with not many transfers. So it's definitely an experienced team for that point. It's in a talented team on that line. Speaking of which, O-line looks great. I will give Brent Key his flowers. He has built a behemoth there, and he brings in Keelan Rutledge from Middle Tennessee, who was a quality starter for them over the past couple of years. So I got no concerns of the offensive line. It's going to be one of the best in the conference as far as what I've seen from a returning production standpoint. From a receiver point of view, this one will be about average. Eric Singleton is great as a true freshman. Expect him to take even more steps as a true sophomore this year. You have a red zone threat in Brent Seether. You got Malik Rutherford in the wide receiver F. I imagine that's probably their slot. So the three combined there, and even given Chase Lane his flowers, he's a productive player as well. The wide receiver room for Georgia Tech will be solid. It'll be about middle of the pack for the ACC, maybe a little better. So quality options there. Haynes King, quality quarterback. If you follow college football fantasy, and I dabble in it, I don't play it. I just kind of look at it to see who's doing what. If you look at college football fantasy, I believe Haynes King was listed as a top 10 quarterback last year. Just the ability to do it with his legs, do it through the air, and he's coming back for year two. And with those receivers that we had talked about, Georgia Tech and pass threat are not words that you often hear in the same sentence. I recall a Georgia Tech team that would run triple option for the majority of my life. I'm almost 30. So to see the receivers open up a little bit, to see a quarterback that can bring that quality, I think Haynes King is a top 5 quarterback in the ACC. I'm going to say it. Flame me all you want for it. I think Haynes King is quality. I think he's going to showcase that quality this year. And then Jamal Hines is also a quality running back as well. So I think the threats on offense are definitely there. I'll give Tech their credit. They are going to be not a powerhouse, but they'll be up there on offense. They will be a tough team to beat. If you're on defense, you got a lot on your plate. If you're a linebacker, you got a lot on your plate. If you're on the line, if you're a DB, there's a lot going on Georgia Tech's offense right now. The defense is where I have some concerns, and it's more so just because it's a little bit more pedestrian. It's a little bit more average. The D line is like that for me, where Zeke Biggers right in the middle there. Quality tackle there, 11 sacks. I mean, you can't ask for much more than that. Makia Scott there on the defensive end. I'll take that. Right, that's another quality player, someone that can swap balls, someone that can get sacks. They can do what they got to do. So you got a couple of players that'll make immediately impacts on the D line. Same in the DB room, or same in the linebacker room. Excuse me. Kyle Effort is your leader out there, and one of the younger guys as a result of that. So you got your guy from the immediate future, barring the transfer portal, because you never know about that. Trinilis Tatum as well is a nice little combination to that. So the two up front immediately are your playmakers. I think it's another quality linebacker room. I'd put it probably somewhere right in the middle of the conference. DB room is where I've got some issues. I think it's below average. I think don't get me wrong, there's high impact players there. Clayton Powell-Lee at free safety is good. LaMiles Brooks at strong safety is good. Amari Harvey at cornerback is good. So there are pieces of that group that I think are ready to take the step. It's more so, how can the rest of the team step up around them? How about the depth? Things of that nature that we haven't necessarily seen yet from Georgia Tech so far. So if Georgia Tech wants to be competitive in the conference, if they want to take the next step, the defense needs to take that step this year. The offense is there, but the defense is not ready, as far as I'm concerned, to be a legit contender in the ACC, combined with a very difficult schedule on their end this year. So with that in mind, on the offensive side of the ball, I'm going to go with Jamal Haynes. Again, I gave Haynes King his flowers. I gave the O-line. I gave the receiver room. Kind of leaves Jamal Haynes by default. I expect him to be that next, I expect him to take that next step this year. As a running back, if you look at last year, 119 yards and a touchdown against Virginia, a receiving touchdown against Syracuse. So dual threat type of guy. So let's see what he did against Virginia. We clipped this in here. It's a 43-yard touchdown. So let's see what he does. I believe he just cuts through the line, makes this guy go to another planet, and then it's just off to the races. Can't be caught. I don't know what Virginia's DB was doing there. He goes the complete wrong way. I don't know if it's because Haynes put the move on him, but he's in the end zone. And that was quick. Like let's measure that time, right? So hands off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 seconds from snap to end zone, and they're at the 43. So it's not a 7-second 40-yard dash. He makes some cuts, he makes some moves, but definitely some quality play on that front. Once he got past that DB, it was over. So I expect to see a lot more of that this year. I think the focus of DB rooms or defenses that play Georgia Tech this year is going to be shutting down that receiving game, and as a result of that, it's going to open up the field a little bit more for Jamal Haynes, excuse me. So expect a big year out of Haynes. Expect him to evolve as a rusher and end up maybe towards the top of the ACC in rushing. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I'm going to go back to that DB room. I'm going to go with Omar Daniels. So, and it's just a matter of inexperience. It's like, when I say some players are good, that doesn't make other players bad. Just, to clarify, we haven't seen a lot of Omar Daniels, and we're going to see him more in a nickelback role this year. He had a two tackle performance against Bowling Green, pass defended against Ole Miss, and again, that was a quality Ole Miss team. He's batting down balls thrown by Jackson Dart. So if he can do that, he can do it against some lesser talent opponents at quarterback in the ACC. So I expect Omar Daniels to establish himself as a more permanent starter for Georgia Tech, establish himself as another leader on the defensive side of the ball, on the secondary, because he will be back next year as well. So he gets his opportunity, he gets his chance to start. And I think based on what we've seen in a limited capacity, he does have the opportunity to make the most of it this upcoming year. So next up, what we've got is, again, another team going through a culture change and a culture shift. A team that's trying to establish their identity and figure out who they want to be for the future. But a team that I actually have a lot of promise in long term. I just think it's going to take a little bit of time to get them there. That's going to be Cuse. What's his name? Babers is gone. Fran Brown is in. Comes in from Georgia as their not their defensive coordinator, their defensive backs coach. Truth be told, anything that weakens Georgia, love it. Take their DB coach, make him your head coach, do what you got to do. But it is the Fran Brown era at Syracuse right now. Year one, they were okay last year, 6-7, didn't make it. They made it to a bowl game. And we're definitely curious to see how this team evolves with their new identity, new head coach. Seems to be recruiting well, seems to be using the transfer portal well. It could be the foundation of things to come. It's just going to take a little bit of time for Fran Brown to get the pieces together. So with that spread offense and that 3-3-5 defense, let's see what he's working with this year. So comparing to Georgia Tech, which had very little gold, Syracuse has a ton of gold on both offense and defense. But let's see what the quality of that type of player is. So starting on the offensive line, not a ton of experience. You bring in Josh Miller from Georgia, young guy, looking for that opportunity to start. You do have some starters coming back. Enrique Cruz Jr. on the left tackle spot, Jean-Marie Reed in the center. So there are pieces to the puzzle that are already there for Syracuse on the O-line. I do think it's a step back from, from some of the other teams in the conference. I think it's going to be towards the bottom, but truth be told, the pieces are there to potentially succeed. Kind of the same with the receiver room, because outside of Aronde Gadsden the second, they don't have that much experience at all. So you have almost 1,000-yard receiver tight end. That's not normal. So that's what you got to lean on if you're Syracuse. I know it's a spread offense, and it's probably going to be a little bit more run heavy and short pass heavy. That's going to be their breadbasket right now, because if you look at the receiver room, you got two receivers coming in from Georgia, Jackson Meeks and Zede Haynes, and then they come in with very little experience. Trevor Pena has some pieces here or there, but I really think they're going to lean a little bit more on Gadsden, just due to that performance he's had in the past, that ability to just break out, and that ability to be a red zone threat, a deep ball threat, whatever he's got to do. It works for Syracuse. I don't think they reinvent the wheel just quite yet. Quarterback room, Honda McCord comes in from Ohio State. I think Kyle McCord's all right. I think he comes in and he's immediately an upper half QB in the ACC, maybe a top 5 quarterback in the ACC. He just wasn't the guy for Ohio State, but not being the guy at Ohio State doesn't mean you're not the guy at Syracuse. Two very different sets of expectations. Ohio State wants a national championship every year. Syracuse wants to win 8 games a year. Is that a fair ask for Cuse fans? 8 games, beat your rivals, win your bowl game. So I think at an up and coming program like Syracuse, McCord, I think, potentially thrives and comes in and is your staple already for a developing team. And Quint Allen, I think, is an above average running back. He's probably towards the mean a little bit more than McCord is, but LaQuint Allen establishes an early run threat for Syracuse heading into this season. So if you're Fran Brown and you look at the pieces of what you have on this offense, you have something to work with. If the line comes together and has a big year, you have a run game, you have a quarterback, you have a tight end that can be a weapon in all parts of the field. That's all you need at this point for Syracuse. The rest will come. Well, that's years away. Unfortunately for the kids, many of them will not see the results of that. But if you're Fran Brown, you're building something up, that could be the case for you. On the defensive side of the ball, if you look at what we got, this is where I think Syracuse wins games. Look at the DB room. Fran Brown was a DB coach at Georgia, and I think he comes into a DB room that's one of the best in the conference right off the bat. You got, Devin Grant comes in after a successful couple of years at Buffalo, looking to make a name for himself at the Power 4 level. You got Justin Barron as your rover, who's coming back as a leader on the defense out back there. Elijah Clark over at safety, and then we get a returning face for Syracuse fans, Deuce Chestnut, who spent a little bit of time at LSU. Thought I guess didn't like gumbo all that much, and is ready to go back to Syracuse to potentially finish off the rest of his college career. I think he's a great option there at free safety for Syracuse. So the DB room is fine. I got no issues with that. Linebacker room is top 5 in the conference as well. I think there's quality players there. Marlowe Wax right in the middle there. Fantastic opportunities there. 7 sacks in the past. Couple pass defended picks, forced fumbles. He's all over the place. He's teamed up with Derek McDonald on his strong side there. Anwar Sparrow is there as a quality opportunity as well. So I'm, again, not worried about the linebacker room. And I think the D-line is above average. I think it's not a detriment for Syracuse on the defensive side this year. You got Fidel Diggs coming in from Texas A&M. I don't think he was a part of that monster class they brought in, but he's been a contributor for them for quite some time. As has Kevin Jobity for Syracuse. This is his third year. Dion Wilson coming in from New Mexico State and ready to make a splash again at the Power 4 level, previously at Arizona before that. But I think defensively, Syracuse is in a very, very good place. So with that in mind, on the offensive side of the ball, I'm going to take Zeta Haynes, a wide receiver, 4-star kid from the class of 2023, transferred from Georgia, came with his coach. That's the type of guy you want through the transfer portal. 4-stars do not usually come to Syracuse. 4-stars do not usually look at programs in the ACC outside of Clemson, FSU, Miami, and maybe Virginia Tech. So to get one of them through the transfer portal, and he was a 4-star in 2023, so still young, still developing. If he can develop under Coach Brown in a new environment where he gets a lot more playing time, that'll be huge for Syracuse to get a young guy in there and establish him early. And I think he's going to have the chance to do so this year. On the defensive side of the ball, I brought him up earlier, but Dion Wilson Jr. coming back from New Mexico State. Big moment was a sack against Florida International last year. Again, Conference USA. You got to take who they put in front of you. But he's shown he can get pressure. He's shown he can hit running backs. He can hit quarterbacks. He can do what he needs to do for his defensive line. And I think while the quality of opponent is higher at Syracuse than it was in New Mexico State, the quality of opportunity for him to succeed is better at Syracuse than it was at New Mexico State. And I expect Dion Wilson Jr. to make the most out of that over the course of this next year. So next up, these last couple teams we've talked about are teams with fluid coaching situations, new guys trying to establish themselves, some guys maybe on the hot seat a little bit. Now we're going to go to the opposite side of that spectrum, and we're going to go for a team that has a lifelong coach, basically, someone that's been there for a while, never leaving, and you're going to get the results that you get year after year. We're talking Wake. So Dave Clawson's been there forever. He's been there 11 years. That's the type of guy you kind of want if you are Wake Forest, someone loyal to the program. I do expect them to take a step this year. I do expect them to evolve as a program because right now, if you're looking at last year, just was not there. But I do expect Wake Forest to step up. I do expect them to, make a move or two. But Dave Clawson has been the guy at Syracuse now for quite some time, and at Wake Forest now for quite some time, and I think you see more of that over the course of this season. So with that, look at their depth chart here for a second. Again, this is one that does not have a lot of goal line, that they have some pieces here and there that I think are present and prevalent. Just starting at the O-line, I think it's going to be a little bit below average. I think the left side of the line is quality. Devontae Gordon, Matt Golbin, and Luke Pettibon are a good 1, 2, 3 to protect the blind side of the quarterback. So those three go a very, very long way. There's not a lot of experience on the right-hand side that will need to be gathered quickly for Wake Forest to be successful this year. So I think those three on the left are going to be fine for Wake Forest. The two on the right are going to be the ones that determine if Wake has a good year or a not so good year. In the receiver room, I think this is where you got your quality. Donovan Green back for one more. Let's ride it out. Taylor Moore back for one more. Let's ride it out. A 1-2 punch that Wake Forest really needed to come back, and they did. They're loyal to the school, and they're ready to make a jump for Wake Forest, especially on the offense there. Quarterback room, that's your one transfer. You got Hank Bachmeier, comes in from Louisiana Tech and via Boise State. Personally speaking, I'm always going to have a soft spot for Hank Bachmeier because I watched him beat FSU. What was it, in 2019 when Boise State came down to to Tallahassee. That was the famous Willie Taggart. They're not properly hydrated game, so I'm gonna give Bachmeier his flowers whenever possible for that type of game. I think he comes into the ACC right around middle of the pack. He's you're not Sam Hartman. Sorry, Wake fans. He's not going to be that type of QB, but he's definitely the type of guy that I think can rise to the occasion for Wake Forest this year. And then the running room, I think, right around the same as the O line. Kind of slightly below average, just some question marks, kind of lack of experience for Claiborne compared to the rest of the conference. That's kind of how I make these judgments as well. It's like, where do they stack up in relation to the rest of the competition? I think Claiborne is a fine guy, fine running back, but I think in relation to the rest of the conference, I have some concerns. On the defensive side of the ball, it's again a lot of these teams that are starting to evolve. The defense is where it starts. Top 5 D-line. Let's just call it what it is. And they're all seniors who are coming back for one last ride. Jacine Davis, Kevin Pointer, Bryce Ganias. Let's go with Ganias. Ganuis. Let's try that. Kendron Wayman. So you got quality players, 4 deep on the D-line. Going to be a problem for offensive lines, going to be a problem for quarterbacks and running backs. So Wake up front will be able to apply that pressure. The linebacker room, I think, is also quite potentially the best one in the conference. I would not say that right now, but potentially. Branson Combs comes in from Southern Illinois, so making an FCS to Power 4 jump. That's not traditionally heard of, and it does represent a level of quality and belief that coaching staffs have in those types of players to make that jump. So if Branson Combs can make it and establish himself at the Power 4 level, then it is going to be another addition to a strong Wake Forest defense already. Combined with Dylan Hazen back there, who already is your established leader. If there is a 1-2 punch potential for a defense that is in a 4-2-5 and requires flexibility, if both of them are ready to go, then that's a big move for Wake Forest. And then the DB room is where I got some concerns. So you bring in which one? Capone Blue. You bring him in from Kent State. So that's a guy trying to elevate himself in his career. But I do think this is going to be one of the weaker ones just from a pure experience perspective. You do have Nick Anderson at free safety that I think is, one of the guys you need for Wake Forest. But then really outside of him, Evan Slocum at the nickelback and Capone Blue are your two, or 2 or 3 established options and opportunities for Wake this year in the DB room. So expect them to evolve, expect them to be better this year, but it's going to take some time. It's going to take some experience. I think if they're going to lose games on defense right now, it's going to be through the air. So with that, we do have a clip. Fantastic. So I am going to take DeMont Claiborne for the offensive breakout of player of the year. Had a 2-touchdown performance against Pitt. We're going to see one of those in a little bit here. 165 rushing yards against Vandy. And I know it's Vandy. I know it's not a world beater, but it is a Power 4 opponent. It is someone that can trip you up if you're not looking. Trust me, I've seen it. So, just putting a hurt on them goes a long way for Claiborne and building that confidence up. So let's see. So it just cuts through the hole, and is gone. That's late in the game. That's 3 minutes in the fourth, 3 minutes left in the fourth to take the lead against what? Against a Pitt team that struggled last year, but a Pitt team nonetheless. Let's just see. Follows his block. It's a good hole, and then is just off. Is quick. Just wants to put the game away. If he can do that, and he did that twice against Pitt this past year. He can do that twice against Boston College. He can do it twice against NC State. And Wake Forest is going to be back on the winning side of 500, which, truth be told, if I'm looking at it right now, it's on the agenda. It's a possibility heading into this year. So I expect Wake to take a step. That's a big way to do it on offense. On the defensive side of the ball, we got Devon Patterson. So that's going to be your strong safety there with not a ton of experience, but he did have a 5-tackle performance with Syracuse. That does include assist on tackles, but nonetheless, got that experience and that opportunity in that arena. So five tackles against Cuse, a Cuse that had a bowl game appearance, so hit at least 500 prior to the bowl game, and kind of the type of team that you would expect Wake Forest to be competitive with. So if he's doing 5 tackles against Syracuse, you can do it against him this year. You can do it against him, Duke. You can do it against Georgia Tech. So I expect that type of performance moving forward and to get more involved in pass defense as well. So I'd expect, a big year for Devon Patterson, as he's given the opportunity to do so. So next up, coming up, this is 11th, and this is going to be one of our newbies. This is going to be, one of our welcome teams to the ACC. We're talking Cal. Cal was okay last year. Justin Wilcox, definitely coaches above his pay grade, and keeps Cal competitive in opportunities that they probably have no business being competitive in. It's a school that, alongside Stanford, does not necessarily prioritize the football program, and he does what he can to make the most out of that situation. So year 8, average year last year, came in 7th of the Pac-12 in there last year, so not bad. Up-tempo spread offense, so definitely looking forward to seeing a little bit more of that. And another, 2-4-5 defense, very similar to what Stanford runs. But I expect Cal to be kind of right in the middle of the conference. What is it? They're 17 now, so 9-10 is average. So Cal will be in the thick of it. They'll be kind of right in the middle there. And, they'll be competitive throughout the entire year. Looking at the depth chart real quick, I got some problems on offense, and I'm just going to, lay it out there straight. You got Jaden Ott on running back, no problems there. Jaden Ott is a top 5 running back in the ACC. That part I'm good with. Fernando Mendoza, young guy at quarterback, he'll be all right. He'll be, again, probably towards the middle of the pack, but the further you go up on this list, the more concerns that I've got. The receiver room is questionable. You do bring in some transfers. Tobias Merriweather comes in from Notre Dame. Mikey Matthews comes in from Utah. So maybe they get that spark of life that they need that the transfer portal offers them. Tron Grizzle is is your big guy coming back at receiver. That's the guy you got to lean on. But really, outside of him, Merriweather and Matthews are unproven at this current time. A lot can change, but as of right now, I don't know what to get out of it. Kind of the same with the O-line here, where you got Sessions on the right, which is quality starts there, and then the further left you go, the more questionable it becomes. You have some quality starts with Sealp by Badikana, and then Matthew Wyckoff. So, they've established themselves in some capacity, but the rest of the O-line for Bastion Swinney and Nick Morrow really haven't that much. So that's where it gets a little bit younger. That's where it gets a little bit less experienced. And if Cal wants to succeed in their new conference, establishing the O-line early and making it a priority is going to help tremendously. I just don't think it's there right now. On the defensive side of the ball, the D-line is solid. I think it's going to be an above-average D-line there. Really, everyone is a immediate contributor with Nate Burrow, Ricky Correa, throw Ethan Saunders into the mix. If you look at the linebacker room, that's where I've got my concerns there. don't get me wrong, you've got some you've got some quality players in all capacities, but I think with the linebacker room and other teams just so much richer. Outside of Cade Uluave, I'm looking for like that heavy hitter. Maybe it's Xavier Carlton, but those are your kind of 1-2 punches. I'm looking for maybe a little bit more of a step up. DB room is going to be average, maybe a little bit above average, especially guys like Craig Woodson, Noel Williams, Matthew Littlejohn. So the DB room will be okay. It's really just the linebacker room is the one I am most concerned with at this current time. On the offensive side of the ball, I got to go with the O-line. So I'm going to go with Nick Morrow, redshirt freshman, starting left tackle potentially for this upcoming year. Big kid. I think he's like 6'8", something like that. Long. Seemed to be a little bit of a project, but I think Cal may have a gem on their hands at the left tackle. He can protect Mendoza and put them in a good spot for the year. Then Cal will be in a good spot on the O-line, but he's going to come up to players like Nick Morrow stepping up to the plate and delivering for Cal. On the defensive side of the ball, I'm going to take David Reese. So came in from Florida last year, actually, but I think he's looking for a bigger year at Cal than he had last year. He had a quality year at Cal last year. Don't get me wrong. 3 sacks against UCLA, one team. 2 forced fumbles against Washington State. So he's getting on the stat sheet. He's making the type of plays, but I think he wants to evolve as a pass defender this year. I think he wants to continue to apply pressure. I believe he led Cal in sacks last year as well. So I think he's just looking for more chance and more opportunity to be a more permanent starter and to make plays like having 3 sacks against UCLA. Like more games like that are going to go a long way for Cal on this journey into the ACC. So what we got up next, a team that struggled last year and is looking to make a bounce back as we enter the top 10, and that'll be Pitt. Pat Narduzzi back for year 10. They were not good last year. They were 3-9. I believe in one of my Converse video previews from last year, I think I had Pitt in the ACC championship. So color me surprised when it didn't all work out. But I do think Pitt takes a step up this year. It's not going to be the conference championship. Want that on the record. But I do think, the quality that, Narduzzi has brought to the program for the last decade is noticeable. Definitely performed above standards in the past, and I expect them to rise back up to the occasion this year. It's a pro-style offense and a 4-3 defense, so very common in what we're seeing across all the world right now. No transfers on offense, or at least from the starting lineup perspective. And just to take a look here, the O-line is average to below average, let's say. It's kind of the opposite of Cal, where like you go left to right and it gets weaker, whereas Cal went right to left and it gets weaker. But you do have your starting left tackle, Branson Taylor, there, so you're good there. I like Terrence Moore in the center. I like Ryan Baer. So there are options for Pitt on the offensive line. I think it'll be a slightly below average O-line and puts them in a place to at least be competitive up front and give the pocket time to establish the play. In the receiving room, Kanata Mumfield is the number one guy. Gavin Bartholomew at tight end is a sneaky red zone pick. So those two in particular stand out for me in a big way for Pitt. Just establishing the passing game, getting open, making defenses have to worry about just about everything. I think the receiver room will be average. The receiver room will be kind of good enough. Haven't seen a lot of Nate Yarnell yet. We will see a lot of him this year. As he is going to be the guy, but not a ton to report on early on in the season. Definitely curious to see how he comes together. And then Rodney Hammond, I think, is going to be, again, probably a below average running back, but someone who can, churn the ball, get things moving, and create opportunities for for Pitt this year. On the defensive side of the ball, I got some concerns. They're not in the DB room because you got Donovan McMillan, who had a monster year last year. You got Javon McIntyre, free safety, who had a monster year last year. I got no concerns up that front. You do have Jeremiah Anglin Jr., who comes in from Kentucky. On the D line, you got Nate Matlack, who comes in from Kansas State. So those are your only two transfers, anywhere on this team that are going to potentially start. But the D line, I got some problems because outside of Nate Macklin or Matlack, not a ton of experience up front. So a lot of, as you can see, sophomore. A lot of sophomores on this team in general. So not a lot of returning production. Same with the linebacker room, where you do have Brandon George. I'll give you that. Maybe Kyle Lewis, but outside of that, it's hard to stack that up to the rest of the competition in the ACC. So it's hard to see Pitt winning games through their defense. Their offense looks to be a little bit of a step ahead, and I think it's going to be mainly due to the receiver room and or the DBs are going to be the reason that Pitt wins games this year. So on offense, I will give it to your QB. I will give it to Nate Yarnell as he established himself as the full-time starter. So 265-2 against Duke last year. Got a rushing touchdown against BC, so it was a little bit dual threat. Let's take a look at one of his passes in particular against Duke. This is one of the ones that did go for a touchdown. It should, yeah. Okay. So sets back, sets himself, pocket starts to collapse, rolls out, chucks it downfield. Great catch. I'm going to give the receivers credit on that one. They're still trying to figure it out. And it's a touchdown. So gets it up, 1 foot down, everything like that. But I think if you look at it again, it's great ball placement by Yarnell. It's a good catch. Don't get me wrong. It's a fantastic catch. But I think, the ball placement from Yarnell right out of the reach of the DB, but right in the basket of the receiver there. That's the type of throw you got to make as an ACC quarterback. And he's shown that he's capable of it. I would have liked to have seen him stay in the pocket a little bit more. I think he gave up on it a little too early. But that decision-making comes with time and experience, which he will get over the course of this season. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I'll go with Sean Fitzsimmons. Again, one of the younger guys on the D-line here. Picked up a tackle against BC and a tackle against Duke. So, he's in there. He's been a rotational guy for a little bit. Now I think he's ready to step up as a full-time defensive tackle for Pitt this year. And if he can do it, if he can establish himself as the guy in the interior and as the guy that you can that can step up and deliver, then Pitt will be on a good place on defense this year. I think Pitt will be all right this year. I think 10th is a good place to put them in, right in that bowl eligibility conversation. So next up in 9th place, again, another team trying to figure out its identity, figure out its culture, everything along those lines. Going Boston College. It's the first year of the Bill O'Brien era. Comes over from being the Patriots offensive coordinator. BC was okay. BC was okay last year. 7-6, 9th in the ACC. Now they're going to be probably around the same this year, but with a new head coach and someone that can provide a direction for them moving forward. Brings a multiple pro offense with a 4-2-5 defense, and more importantly, he's got that NFL experience. If you are a 3-star recruit in the Northeast and you get an offer from BC, you can be coached by someone that coached with Bill Belichick. That'll open your eyes a little bit. That'll make you want to commit a little bit quicker than you used to for BC. So with that, BC is not one of the programs that, while going through a coaching change, just obliterated the transfer portal. I mean, BC being private and academically elite, it's a little bit tougher. So as a result of that, they got to use the depth that they've created over the years, kind of more of an old school approach. If we look at the offense, well, the line is looking good. I will give them credit. The line is looking really nice right now. Logan Taylor, Drew Kendall, Jack Conley, Ozzie Trepolo, experience, especially in those four, just ready to protect the quarterback, create space, push the lineup. I'm looking forward to seeing the offensive line play here. The receiver room is top 5. Yeah, you don't think about that a lot when you're in a BC. Top 5 receiver room in the ACC potentially? I think so. I think they could, because the places they did go to are the places that they did get better and came from the transfer portal. So the limited transfer portaling that they did was a big boost. Duran Bradley coming over from T-Tech. Jaden McGowan coming in from Vanderbilt. You have Lewis Bond still there, who's your number 1 guy potentially. It might be Duran Bradley as far as we're concerned right now, but pieces are there. The wide receiver there, the wide receiver room is good, no question about it, and it gives Boston College some options at offense this year. There we go. Let's say the whole sentence now. Then you got to Kai Robichaux at running back. I think he's a quality running back there. Middle of the pack in the ACC, someone that can open up the offense a little bit more, especially when you're, a multiple pro style offense. You got to have a good running back. You got to have good receivers. You got to have good everything to make it happen. And then you got Thomas Castellanos, whose play reminds me a lot. I was thinking about this the other day. Mike, who does it remind me of? And it's a lot closer like a John Rice Plumlee out of UCF, Ole Miss, like the guy that could be a running back or a quarterback, depending on the situation. And, I'm really intrigued to see what he can do as a year 2 starter now. On the defensive side of the ball, I think this is where BC is a little bit underwhelming. Their D-line is nice. I will give them credit. Cam Horsley in the middle. Donovan, all right, let's get this in one shot. Donovan Ezeruaku, maybe, just a magnificent 1-2 punch. So on the D end, in the middle, everything like that. So just quality options there on the defense. So especially on the defensive line there. Linebacker room is a little shaky. It's a little bit more, a little bit under average there, a little bit less than average. So you got Cam Arnold. Give him his roses. Bryce Steele in the middle there. So 2 just good players at the linebacker room, 2 players that are ready to make that jump for BC. I just want to see them combine with the rest of this defense. I want to see how they work with some of the youth out there, and but it's a very top heavy linebacker, and the depth comes up to play, then it'll work out long term. The DB room is where I've got some problems. I think this is going to be one of the weaker ones in the conference. You do have Amari Jackson at the corner, Cole Batson coming back as well. Bryce Brown, who comes in from Georgia State, so a guy trying to move up to the group from the group of 5 to the Power 4 and make a name for himself. Everything along those lines. So there are pieces of quality for this BC defense. I'm just curious how it all comes together, because there's also a lot of youth out there and a lot of inexperience out there. So if that becomes a detriment for Boston College, they might struggle in year 1 with Bill O'Brien. But on the offensive side of the ball, I'm going to go with the QB there. I'm going to go with Thomas Castellanos. Yeah. 265 and 3 against Louisville, and you're going to see one of those in a little bit. And then just took Army's rushing attack and did it himself. 142 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns against Army. Just all on the ground. Like, the guy can do it all. It's the same thing I did with Haynes King for that Georgia Tech thing. Like, I looked up college football stats. I think Castellanos was like top 5, top 10 at QB stats, just because he can do both. Like, he could be that next great dual threat QB if he has a good year at Boston College. Like if he balls out, he'll be in the portal next year, and he'll be at a top line program somewhere in the Big Ten or the SEC. But let's see what he looks like as a passer. That's him scoring. So he drops back. Line gives him up immediately. That was on 2 seconds. At the line of scrimmage, flicks the wrist, and just beautiful ball placement. Now, this game's already over. It's 35-7 into the half. It did stand the flag. Doesn't matter. So he just flipped it. But it's so effortless, though. He's so quick. And then, okay, he had a little bit of arm motion on it. But, when you're actually looking at it, it really just looked like he just snapped back and it went 40 yards. So if he can do that pretty consistently over the course of this year, if he can do that with the new additions to the receiver room, which I think are going to help him as a passer tremendously, cut down on the mistakes, then Castellanos is going to be in for a big year for Boston College. And you live and die by your QB. So BC could be in for an even bigger year than what I've got if Castellanos is ready to make that jump. Let's see. And then on the defensive side of the ball, we got Cameron Martinez at strong safety. Comes in from Ohio State as a 4-star recruit in 2024. Just never really got that consistent playing time over the last couple of years. He did 2 or 3 years ago, but it really dropped off with the change in defensive coordinator and defensive scheme out there. So Martinez comes in ready to reinvent himself and make a name for himself. Under a new head coach and a new team and a new campus. And if you were a 4-star recruit at high school, it means you have the potential to step up and deliver for your team. So we're really looking forward to seeing what Martinez can do, as that strong safety and as that quality defensive back that Boston College is looking for this year. So at number 8 and beyond, we're getting to the top of the conference. We are getting to where what separates the good teams from the great teams. And I think this is a team that has the potential to be great. So we're going to go Virginia Tech. So we're in our top 8 now, and all of these guys are going to be legit contenders. Brent Pry is turning his program around, ton of returning production. Schedule is very, very easy to navigate compared to some of the other ones in the conference. They avoid a lot of the top dogs. I think they avoid Florida State. They get Clemson at home. But I think they avoid NC State. They avoid North Carolina, I think. I got to take a look. I don't think it's Miami and Clemson are their only 2 tough ones. So the rest are very, very winnable for Virginia Tech. So a potential statement year here for Brent Pry as he developed the team to be more successful in 2023. I think they're looking to make a stand again in 2024. Multiple style offense and a 4-3 defense. Let's look at the depth chart. The offense is dynamic. I think it's the best receiver room in the conference. I think it's the best O-line in the conference. Let's just get that immediately out of the way. If you look at the offense, DeQuan Felton, Allie Jennings, Jalen Lane. Allie Jennings is a 1,000-yard receiver. Jalen Lane is just short of being a 1,000-yard receiver. DeQuan Felton is a 8-touchdown performance last year or the year before. So all the chances are there, all the opportunities are there. You look at the offensive line, ton of returning production, ton of 4 of their 5 starters coming back on the O-line, and then they bring in Montavious Cunningham from Georgia State, who is their starter. So if he's ready to make that jump to the Power 4 level, then essentially you've brought back all 5 starters on the O-line, in theory. If you look at the running game, close to the best in the conference with Bayshall Tutton, 1,300 yards, 13 TDs, all of that potential, all of that opportunity there has a chance to come forward again this year. I think Kyron Drones is an average quarterback, but the weapons around him this year are dynamic, and he has the potential to evolve as one of the best quarterbacks in the conference if possible. On the defensive side of the ball, linebacker room is nice. Kelly Lawson and Sam Brumfield, everything along those, through those lines. Keontae Jenkins, and Sam Brumfield comes from Middle Tennessee, so JUCO transfer, went to Middle Tennessee, ready to step up at the Power 4 level and make a name for himself for Virginia Tech. I think he's going to. But for Virginia Tech, the concerns I have are going to be on the D line and the DB room. Starting with the DB room, you got, let's see, Mansour Delane, you got Jalen Stroman has a good 1-2 punch on the left side of the field. But outside of that, there's still some inexperience on the right side of the field that we can't judge just quite yet. Kind of same with the D line here, where you have Antoine Powell-Ryland, the 9.5 sack season, Aeneas Peebles. So the left side of that D line is quality. The right side, we don't know a lot about. If we don't know a lot about it, it's hard to assess how good they will be. And we just got to assume it's going to be a question mark for right now. With that in mind, on offense, we'll go Kyron Jones as the breakout player. See what he's able to do. This is against Virginia. Just rolls out, hits his guy in stride, 4-6, rivalry game. Still the first quarter, puts him up by 2 scores. So last year, 244 yards passing and 3 touchdowns against Virginia as a rusher, had 75 yards and 3 touchdowns against Marshall. So dual threat guy. You can see how quick he is. I want to start it over from the beginning once this clip ends. Because I think, how much time does the line give him? Where's it designed? It's an option play, rolls out, pocket collapses almost immediately. That's the one drawback, but, perfectly drawn up, great from start to finish. I think Kyron Jones does have the ability to step up and be the type of passer that Virginia Tech needs, as well as the ability to contribute with his legs. So those two combined for a great opportunity for Jones to establish himself as a leader in the ACC and bring Virginia Tech back to conference, if not countrywide recognition and notability. And then on the offense, we'll go with Kevin Gilliam Jr. So again, on that defensive line, comes in from Oklahoma. And then, Aeneas Peebles came in from Duke. I have that written down too. So comes in from Oklahoma. Missed 6 games last year. I think it was on the precipice of becoming a breakout player for Oklahoma. Just didn't work out the way that it worked out. Predominantly special teams, and then his season ended. So I think if he's coming back from injury healthy, he's ready to make some moves on the D line and ready to establish himself as a full-time player, then Virginia Tech has a gem on their hands. I think that's the easiest way to say it. The guy can come out and make those plays Virginia Tech needs, stop the run, get sacks, and contribute since there's already going to be double teams on guys like Peebles and Powell-Ryland. If Gilliam can accept those one-on-one assignments, get into the backfield, Virginia Tech is going to have a lot more flexibility on the defensive side of the ball this year than they probably anticipated. So with that, we're heading into our top 7. And this is going to be our last of the newcomers. This will be SMU. So, Rhett Lashley and company coming in from the AAC, the American, whatever you want to call it, where they won it last year. They could have stayed and shot for one of those group of 5 playoff spots potentially, as that number 12 seed potentially, but they wanted the spotlight, the big opportunity, and now they're going to get it. So 11-3 last year. I think that's going to be tough to replicate in the ACC, but got to give them credit for trying. Bringing an air raid offense and a 3-4 defense. I don't think we've seen an air raid just quite yet, so it would be fun to see how that looks for SMU in the ACC this year. Flipping it over to your depth chart here, offense with an air raid is not going to be a problem. You got Preston Stone, who I think comes in and is one of the best quarterbacks in the conference. You have Jalen Knighton, who is a quality running back. I'd say probably above average. The O-line and the receiver room are average in their own rights. Jake Bailey is someone you gotta keep an eye on. I think he's a great slot receiver, and that returning connection with Preston Stone goes a long way. On the offensive side of the ball, the middle is pretty thick with Logan Parr, Ja'Kai Clark, and then Justin Osborne on the right. So there's quite a bit of returning production. There's not a lot of use of the transfer portal for SMU. The only one they brought in was Savion Byrd, and we'll talk about him in a little bit. Spoiler alert. On the defensive side of the ball, this is where I think SMU is going to lose those games. DB room is all right. I think Isaiah Nwakobia is a good safety for them. What else? Jonathan McGill at safety. There's another 1-2 punch. Kale Saunders at the nickel spot. They're bringing in Deuce Harmon from Texas A&M, so keep an eye on him. But then you look at the D-line and the linebacker room, and that's my concern. D-line, really outside of Elijah Roberts, you don't have a true lockdown guy. If you look at the linebacker room, you do have a 1-2 punch of Kobe Wilson and Ahmad Walker, but I'd like to see a little bit more depth there this year. Right now, we know it's those two, but we got to know if there's anything else there in the tank. So those are the things keeping me from putting SMU up on a higher pedestal. But right now, I think the offense is going to keep SMU moving and going. The defense is going to be anything that potentially holds them back. But on the offensive side of the ball, spoiler alert, is Savion Byrd. 4-star transfer recruit coming in from Oklahoma, has limited playing time, but SMU's pulling 4-star kids out of the transfer portal. That is a big call for anyone in the state of Texas. They're legit. And I expect Savion Byrd to get more permanent playing time at SMU this year than he ever got at Oklahoma, and established himself as a Power 5 starter or Power 4 starter that SMU needs to be successful in a new home. If you were good enough to get recruited and play at Oklahoma, you were good enough to get recruited and play at SMU. And I think now that the opportunity has presented itself, that Byrd will take that next step, on his collegiate career. On the defensive side of the ball, I'll go with Cameron Robertson. Had a 2-sack performance against Navy, a 4-tackle performance against North Texas. I could not clip the Navy game. It's not on YouTube, or at least the clips I was looking for weren't on YouTube. They are on ESPN, though. So if you look at his player profile on ESPN, you will see the capability of what Cameron Robertson is capable of and what he can do on in the linebacker room this year. I can get back there and get pressure against a Navy quarterback that's very flexible, shifty, and ready to start running. So if you got that pressure there twice, it means that that type of play is working for SMU. So now we're in the top 6 here. These are all going to be your mainstays. These are your traditional powerhouses, everything along those lines. So with that in mind, I think this next one is a team that a lot of people are high on for this upcoming year, and a team I think is potentially ready to make a splash as well. Talking NC State, Dave Doeren, year 12, went 9-4 last year. Again, always consistently at the top of the ACC. 3rd place last year, in the thick of it. Going to be in the thick of it again this year. I'll go over it at the end, but these teams are really in tiers for me. So we can review it at the end. But NC State could finish 6th. They can go as high, as far as I'm concerned. They can go up to 5th or 4th. We'll go 5th. I think it's a good top out for them. Just interesting to see how it all comes together for Dave Doeren. That multiple style offense, that scrappy underdog mentality that NC State kind of rides with, that 3-3-5 defense, all going to be game changing and evolving for NC State this year as they move forward with their program. You look at the depth chart, it's a whole lot of gold on offense there. And I think you'll be thankful for it when you see what they brought in. If you are an NC State fan, you are going to be happy with the results there. So, offensive side of the ball, let's start with the running back room. You got Jordan Waters coming in from Duke, top 5 guy in the conference. Was a top 5 guy in the conference last year. He's a top 5 guy in the conference this year. Immediate impact player for NC State. Immediately ready to, make. He barely even had to move. Raleigh to Durham is like 15 miles. You didn't have to load up that much of a truck. So knows the area, familiar, comfortable, everything like that, and ready to be the number 1 guy for NC State this year. The big pull is at quarterback, Grayson McCall. That guy's coming in. I think tried to transfer last year, just didn't work out with academics, but ready to make an immediate name for himself for NC State. There was talk about him going UCF at one point. I know Florida was in on him when they were pursuing Graham Mertz. This is a talented guy. So good get for NC State. I think he comes in immediately as a top 5 quarterback in the ACC. If he can make that happen and get that period of his time and period of his life where he was a potential high round draft pick, then NC State will be in a great place. The receiver room, a little underwhelming. I mean, it's towards the average point, but if you look at compared to everything else, it's definitely one of the weakest rooms on the team. And it's really because it's held down by Kevin Concepcion. That's your number 1 guy there. 10 touchdown performance in the past, and I think definitely looking to eclipse that this year as well. But really, outside of that, we don't know a whole lot about how the rest of this team is going to look. In the receiving room, the line looks nice. I'll give them the O line. 3 or 4 returning starters: Andy Belton, Anthony Carter. You got Zeke Correll, who comes in from Notre Dame. And then Timothy McKay comes back and starts under his belt. So 3-4 strong starters coming back for NC State. Definitely what you want to see on offense. And on defense, this is where I got some concerns. The DB room is, the DB room is all right. I'll give them that. Devon Boykin at strong safety is a quality player. Donovan Kaufman comes in from Auburn, ready to establish himself here. Aiden White comes back for another year. Jihad Carter, who comes in from Syracuse via Ohio State via Syracuse, third school and ready to cap off his football career with a bang. So it's the best room on the defense. Let's call it what it is. And there's definitely some good play. There's some playmakers back there for sure. It's just an average room compared to the rest of the ACC. The D line is below average, and the linebacker room is below average. The D line outside of Davin Van, little to no experience. Not a whole lot going on there. Maybe Brandon Cleve when you want to throw him in the mix, but not a ton of established experience there. Kind of the same with the linebacker room. You got a nice 1-2 punch, with Sean Brown and Caden Fordham. But, again, outside of that, what's the rest of the room looking? So those are the questions I think NC State needs to answer early and often this year to consider themselves a contender for the ACC. In the offense, I will go to one of the receivers there. I'll go with Noah Rogers. Comes in from Ohio State, 4-star transfer recruit, which is what you want to see if you're NC State. You want to get quality guys out of the portal as much as you can. People in that part of the country, generally speaking, if you're in North Carolina, you're going to, UNC, Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina, Virginia Tech, etc. So getting 4-star recruits out of the portal goes a very long way for NC State. So really curious to see how Noah Rogers does in a permanent starting role for NC State and how he feeds and works with Grayson McCall moving forward. On the defensive side of the ball, I'm going to go with Calvin McBride, another young kid, another redshirt freshman. No experience to speak of under his belt. Probably a 3-star coming out of college. But that's one of those pieces of the linebacker room that I'm like, if I don't know, I can't judge him on. So I think he's going to have to step up. He's going to have to step up big. He's going to have to step up quick. I think NC State plays Tennessee like week 2. So that'll be interesting to see. Can he flex with it? Can he keep up with an SEC offense that is high scoring? That'll be McBride's big test. If he can step up and deliver in that capacity and keep his eyes on Nico and receivers out there and the run game that they can establish, and he can establish himself for the rest of the season, no problem. But McBride's the guy I got to look at on defense to step up in a big way for NC State. Next up, we're entering the top 5. A team with a ton of hype every single year that never seems to live up to expectations, and it consistently has been disappointing fans for 23 years. Fine. What else is new? Just outside the conference championship game, right? But I do expect them to take a pretty sizable jump this year. I feel like that's the MO for Miami for the last 20 plus years. I do believe it this time. I think Mario Cristobal, if he can get out of his own way, Miami will be in a great place. It's just going to take, just going to take what you get at Miami right now. The schedule is fairly favorable for them, and I expect the team to make a pretty big jump in year 3 of Cristobal there. Especially not coming in 9th place in the ACC. That can't happen again. But it's a spread pro style offense and a 4-2-5 defense. So let's see what the depth chart looks like for Miami. And as expected, just covered in gold. They just abuse the transfer portal just like Free Shoes University. So let's see what they look like on all sides of the ball, though. On the offensive side of the ball, O-line is solid. I'll give it where it comes from. Jalen Rivers is going to be that lockdown guy on the left hand side. Zach Carpenter comes in from Indiana as as their starter and ready to start for Miami. Inez Cooper and then Francis Maligoa, on the right hand side. The only one we don't know a whole lot about is Samson Okunlola. And, but 4 out of 5 puts them in a great position to protect the quarterback. So I'm real confident about the offensive line this year. I think it's going to be definitely in the better half of the ACC this year. Receiver room will be top 5. So they bring in Samuel Brown from Houston by way of West Virginia. He's ready to make a splash for himself. Jacoby George had 8 touchdowns last year. Xavier Restrepo was a 1,000-yard receiver last year. So I got no problem with the way the wide receiver room is set up. They are going to have plenty of options out there for the spread offense to get out and open. Cam Ward comes down from Washington State by Incarnate Word. I think Cam Ward is the best quarterback in the ACC. Pause for a minute. Take that in for a minute. Cam Ward comes in from Washington State, automatically the best quarterback in the ACC. Could it happen? Will it happen? I think so. I think it's that's what's lined up for this year. Cam Ward has a huge year. Improves his draft stock, gets ready, and then off to the races for him. But Cam Ward is uber talented, ready to make the jump for Miami this year. Mark Fletcher is the one we don't know a ton about. No running back room. It's the only room that I don't think is like immediately established for a potential top 5 in the conference season. So we'll learn a little bit more about Mark Fletcher in a little bit. I think we know what we're getting out with that. The defense, I think they take a little bit of a step back compared to the offense. The offense looks a lot nicer. D-line is average in the ACC. It's an average D-line. Ruben Bain up front, Tyler Barron on the right hand side of the line. Those 2 guys are pretty sick. Marlon Cook can get some pressure as well. But compared to the rest of the ACC, it's a little uh, it's a little bit concerning, so to speak. It's going to be an average D line. I think honestly that's all you need is with the way that the offense is set up. If the defense is good enough, Miami will be okay, and I think that's going to be the case here. The linebacker room is pretty good. It's an above-average linebacker room for sure. Francisco Malagoa, brother of offensive lineman there, is your guy in the middle. Wesley Besaint as well is that kind of number 2 guy. So interesting to see how they come together as a duo this year in that 4-2-5 DB room. I have my concerns. I think this is how you're going to beat Miami. You got to beat them through the air. That's where I think this is at. You got Isaiah Taylor comes in from Arizona. You got Michael Powell comes in from Washington. Those are impact players. And one of my main I got to talk about the people on the D line there that came in. So C.J. Clark comes in from NC State. Marley Cook comes in from Middle Tennessee, and then Tyler Barron comes in from Louisville by way of Tennessee. So there we go. The D line is Ruben Bain. He's homegrown. The rest are all transfers. It's going to take some time for them to gel, but I think it will work. But the DB room, get those 2 quality players coming in from Arizona and Washington. You get Darryl Porter at cornerback, who I like for Miami. But outside of that, I'm like, I don't know what this team is going to look like. It's a young team back there. They need some time to gel as well. So on the offensive side of the ball, we got Mark Fletcher as your breakout player for Miami. 126 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns against Louisville. We're going to see Miami's real quick. 8.4 yards per carry against Miami. So we'll see what that looks like right here. So this is for their first game of the season. Just takes the handoff, finds the hole, off to the races, and gone. We'll see it in slow-mo in a little bit. So here we go. It just takes it, hole opens up, pull the guard, and untouched in for like 20-something, 30-something yards there. Type of run that you want to see in a young kid. He was a freshman last year. You want to see a guy like that make the most of his opportunities, but at the current time, he hasn't really established himself as the starter, and he'll have to use this year to do that. So I'm looking for Mark Fletcher to have a big year for Miami and step up for them, to establish themselves within the ACC. And then on the defensive side of the ball, we got Jaden Harris at strong safety there. 3 tackle performance against Temple, but really outside of that, we don't know a whole lot about him. Haven't really seen him play all that much. Played spare. Redshirt sophomore, that's going to happen. So, looking to see more of him as an established player in the defense for Miami, as they take that step up this upcoming season. So I think if establishing himself as a starter and continues to contribute to the DB room that's already pretty inexperienced, if he emerges as a young leader, then Miami will be in a good place for the next year. So we're down to our final 4, and this is going to be, a team that was in it last year, through the entire year, and looking to make a name for themselves again, go back, back to the top of the mountain, Louisville. So Jeff Brom came in year 1, made it to the ACC championship game. I don't think that happens this year, but early on, that's a good place to be for Louisville. Set the expectation high. Went 10-4 last year, made it to the ACC championship game. Hometown guy, played there, and ready to make some moves with the program this year. Pro style offense, 4-2-5, 4-3 defense. So let's take a look at the depth chart. That's a lot of gold. That's a lot of gold, and I think it's very well needed. So let's start out with the O-line. You got, how many transferred in? 3? Yeah, you got Monroe Mills coming in from Texas Tech. You got Pete Nigra coming in from Northern Illinois. Then you got Jonathan Mendoza coming in from EA. If you add that on top of Michael Gonzalez and Renato Brown, what you end up with is an O-line that overall is really solid. So really looking forward to seeing that O-line come together, them gel with all of the new changes that are coming out. But I think overall, just on paper, it should be a better than average offensive line in the ACC. Let's go to the receiver room, receiver tight end. So you get Ja'Cory Brooks coming in from Alabama, big get. Big get. You get Callan Lacey coming in from South Alabama. I think an underrated player coming out of the group of 5. And then what else? At tight end, you get Mark Redmond coming in from San Diego State. So 3 immediately impact players that, at least in my opinion, that makes Louisville the top 5 wide receiver room in the conference, just immediately. If those players can gel together and work together, Louisville's going to be off to the races. At quarterback, you got Tyler Show coming in from Texas Tech. Okay. Definitely below average. When you look at the conference, but I digress. It's a new atmosphere, a new opportunity for him, but so far hasn't done anything to super impress me. In his time as a starter there. And running back room is just very, very underestablished. Donald Chaney comes in from Miami, and you do use a fullback, which I guess in this offense is like a runner, blocker, tight end hybrid. But not a lot of established returning production in the running back room. On the defensive side of the ball, you get all these transfers coming in on the D line and all these transfers coming in the DB room. And truth be told, those are the 2 best position groups on the defense by far. It's the best D line in the conference. I said it, I wear it. You get Thor Griffith coming in from Harvard. You get Jordan Garrard coming in from FIU. And you get Miles Jernigan coming in from Cal. On top of Ashton Gilot. I think Thor Griffith is the best player on this D-line without having taken a snap of Louisville ball yet. I think he's going to establish himself immediately as the guy for Louisville, even though Ashton Gilot had an 11 sack season. I think the pressure now goes to Griffith. Even Miles Jernigan can get in the mix too. I'm very curious to see how these guys all work together. Let's go to the DB room for a little bit before going to the linebacker room. So going to the DB room real quick, MJ Griffin, homegrown talent, great safety there. Tamarian McDonald comes in from Tennessee. Corey Thornton comes in from UCF by way of Miami. And you pair that with Tavion Nicholson, who came in from Illinois, as well as Quincy Riley at the corner there. And it's a good place for the DB room to be. Again, if they can gel, if they can work together as a new unit, and they can get over the lack of chemistry that immediately comes with that, it's a top 5 DB room in the conference. And then the linebacker room is average. And that's kind of all you need at this point with all those pieces around them. TJ Quinn is legit. Benjamin Perry is legit. So I am not particularly worried about the linebacker room. It's more so just that it's so top heavy compared to the rest. Like that D line is deep, that secondary is deep. The linebacker room is really, kind of hit or miss depending on how you look at it. But it's still an average linebacker room, which is all you need when you have all that around you. So with that, on offense, we'll go with Dwayne Martin. That's going to be your fullback there. Not a whole lot of stats to report on. 19-yard catch against Virginia. That's really the only notable stat line from the stat sheet. I imagine he can be more of a blocking type fullback and not necessarily a rusher, but if he can establish himself in the running or passing game, it will be big for Louisville. Just to add another weapon to their to their arsenal to just pull out a linebacker or pull out a fullback and say, hey, you got to watch him too. And that'll be big for Louisville this upcoming year. So I'm looking to see Dwayne Martin involved in his role for Louisville to take more pressure off of the rest of the team. And on the defensive side of the ball, we're going to go with Stanquan Clark. That's going to be that other linebacker that I was talking about. So I had a forced fumble recovery against Murray State. I know that is FCS, but you play the teams that you schedule. I'm sure it was garbage time, but made the most of his opportunity. And a 3-tackle game against Indiana, and I know it was Indiana, but still Power 4 opponent, and still an opportunity to make the most of his time. Now that he's going to be more of an established starter for his team, it's a big jump for him and this team moving forward. So I think Stanquan Clark is ready. I think he's shown it in limited playing time, and now he's going to get a lot of playing time for the foreseeable future. So now we are in our top 3. Now we're down to whoever's in third is not making the conference championship. So by virtue, the other 2 will. So with that, let me introduce our final outside looking in team, North Carolina. It shouldn't be too much of a surprise. Clemson, FSU in a conference championship game. Nah, I can't believe it, right? So, North Carolina is, I got them lined up for third. I know there's a lot of transition going on over there right now. I know there's a lot of, pieces up in the air, so to speak. But, I believe in Mac Brown. I believe in the program that they've established over there. Year 6 for them in his second stint. 5th place last year, so it is going to be a little bit of a jump. 8-5 air raid offense, which love to see in the ACC, right? And it's a 4-2-5, 4-3 defense. So let's take a look at what they were working with this year. A little bit more transfer portal than normal because their normal is like next to 0. But if we look at their offense, Omarion Hampton is the best running back in the conference. I think they're going to be run first on an air raid offense, which I think is kind of funny. At the quarterback room, Max Johnson, if he can recreate the success he had at LSU, why can't North Carolina be back in the mix of things? Why can't North Carolina establish themselves as the potential Cinderella team of the ACC? If you can get back out there and get to that level, never really captured it at Texas A&M, but if you can get back to LSU level, North Carolina is going to be a threat. I think Max Johnson automatically comes in as a potential top 5 quarterback in the ACC. The receiver room is okay. Kobe Paysauer and then J.J. Jones. But outside of that, really looking to see some development and growth for the rest of that room. And then the O-line is where I've got some curiosity. Because they're only bringing back Will Lampkin. That's their only starter they're bringing back. Everyone else is a rotational player or transfer. You bring in Austin Blask from Georgia, and you bring in Howard Sampson from North Texas. So it's going to take some time. Not a whole lot of guys that have played together before, played a useful amount of time before. So I'm curious how the O-line comes together. Right now, it's the main position of weakness for that offense that could potentially hold them back from getting to where they need to go. Now, the defense is legit. Best DB room in the conference. Let's call it what it is. Best DB room in the conference with Jakeem Harris. You've got Antavius Lane, Marcus Allen, DeAndre Boykins, Elijah Huzzy, like all of these fantastic players coming together. A lot of them have been playing together before, and as a result of that, you have that chemistry, you have that experience that people are having on this team here. Jakeem Harris coming in from NC State as well, so goes from one above average ACC program to another above ACC above average ACC program, can make an immediate impact for UNC and their quest to get back to the ACC championship game. The D line is top 5, maybe higher. Kevin Hester, Javari Ritzi, and Kamon Rucker. Lots of returning production, lots of returning opportunity on that front. And even the linebacker room, like Power Echols is legit. Power Echols should get drafted at the end of this year. Should. But it's not a one-man room. So that's the only concern that I have at the linebacker room. But even just Power Echols alone puts them in at least an average linebacker. At least average on his own. No one else is around him. So someone will be around him to either prop it up or pull it down. But, I measure it based on the known and the lack of unknown, so to speak. So the defense is going to be legit. The running game for North Carolina is going to be legit. It's just a matter of can the other pieces come together to get them over the mountain. On the offensive side of the ball, I will take that O-line as a breakout player. I'll take Howard Sampson coming in from North Texas. I can't find a lot of info on the guy. I scouted pretty hard. But if he's coming in from the group of 5 to the Power 4, he's coming in with a reason, especially if he's starting. He's ready to make that move. He's ready to establish himself for North Carolina and make the splash that they need him to make for this upcoming year. And then on the defensive side of the ball, we do get some stat. I love when we can get some defensive love in here. So we're going to give it to Amari Campbell, playing linebacker there, sack against Campbell, and an interception against Syracuse. So this is the sack. Now I want you to see how quick this is. I believe he sacks him in under 3 seconds. Ready? 1, 2, 3 on the ground. So he gets into the pocket in under 2 seconds. Let's watch that again. Back, pocket collapses, toe tackle. It is so quick. He got from line of scrimmage behind O-line at the quarterback in under 3 seconds. That's what you need. I know it was against Campbell. I know it's an FCS squad, but you got to take the most of your opportunities. And Campbell did in that situation. If he can do that, and he's had a pick against Syracuse. I couldn't find that one. That's what I was looking for. But if he can do that, when game situations arise, he'll be able to do it against higher level opponents. Definitely looking forward to seeing what he can do in a year as a permanent starter, and what those opportunities will give him. So that brings us to our top 2. So I'm going to start with Clemson first, meaning FSU is going to win the regular season outright. This does not include the conference championship game. That will be at the very, very end. So I did not spoil it for anyone. But next up, we're going to do Louisville, Clemson with Dabo Swinney, year 17. Obviously, one of the staples for the conference so far. Underwhelming year last year, went to 6th in the ACC, 9-4 season. Definitely looking to rebound this year, and I think they're more than willing and capable to do so. So air raid offense and a 4-3-4-2-5 hybrid defense. If we look at the depth chart, I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of gold because we don't use the transfer portal here. But all those goals are freshmen. So the good thing about that, if you're Clemson, is that every single person. The team chemistry is going to be off the charts. Well, let's go with that. I do think Clemson's offense is going to be a step better than its defense, which is not traditionally the case. Clemson usually has had a pretty strong defense. It's just the inexperience on the defensive front is where I have some concerns. But on the offensive side, the O-line is going to be top 5. You're bringing back, 4 starters with Tristan Lee, Marcus Tate, Walker Parks, and Blake Miller. And those starts go a very, very long way with creating camaraderie and gaining experience. The receiver room is average, let's say. Antonio Williams and Tyler Brown, I think, are going to be your guys. Even Jake Brenningstool, as well as a tight end that can be a red zone threat, goes a long way. So it's a little bit under it's not up to the Clemson standard, but it's good enough for the ACC. Running back room is great. Phil Maffa is a beast. This was after Will Shipley was just taken in like the second round, I think it was, on the NFL draft, and you have Phil Maffa waiting in the wings, ready to go, also a senior. Like this is big. So really curious and really looking forward to seeing Phil Maffa get like a more full-time opportunity and cross the 1,000-yard threshold. When it comes to QB, I'm not down on Cade Klubnik like so many other people are. I think Cade Klubnik, from what we've seen so far, is an average ACC quarterback. Is that a fair assessment? Like, I know everyone's like, oh, he sucks. Like, oh, he just checks down, and his accuracy's bad. So on and so forth. I would counter that with there's some not good quarterbacks in the ACC, right? And Cade Klubnik is learning he was at the time. It was his first full year starting? Because DJ Uyunglele transferred out. Cade got the bowl game in 2022 and then all of 2023. So first full year as starter wasn't always sunshine and rainbows. We would expect him to get better this year, as he has more under his belt. Same with Drew Aller at Penn State. Big Ten is next week. Spoiler alert. I'm curious where I rank him as well. I don't have it 100% done yet, but I think it's kind of two sides of the same coin, where it's like you're a quality player at a program that demands more than just quality. They demand exceptional, and Cade Klubnik pays the price for it. But I'm not selling my Cade Klubnik stock yet. On the defensive side of the ball, it's just a lot of new faces. That's the only way to say it. On the D line, you have T.J. Parker and a lot of new faces. In the linebacker room, you have Barrett Carter and a lot of new faces. In the DB room, you have R.J. Mickens and Khalil Barnes and a lot of new faces. So just guys who have been predominantly rotation players, predominantly kind of in and out, not a lot of established starters, but the quality of player is there. I just don't have a large sample size to go off of and say that's the guy. I'm not comfortable with that yet. I know the type of recruiting Clemson does. I know the type of players they bring in, and I have no reason to believe that quality is going to dip. We just haven't seen them rise to the occasion yet. And they'll have a chance. They'll have a chance this year to step up. All those sophomores that you see on the depth chart, which is, good for Clemson's future. It may be tough defensively this year, but the future is bright for all of them. So with that, let's go to the offensive player. Go Cade Klubnik. I think he establishes himself. So we saw a 4-touchdown performance against Charleston Southern with 315 yards. That's not, it's Charleston Southern. I get it. I think he had a 4-touchdown performance against Georgia Tech as well, potentially. And then a nice 50-yard pass against Miami. Let's see that Miami game. Let's see. Speaking of which, I think this is the one I want. Okay, well, let's slow it down a smidge. Okay. Let's get through the celebrations at your tight end. So just one-on-one ball. And it's a fantastic catch from the tight end, but great ball play, just right out of the reach of the DB, does everything he needs to do. What's his pocket presence? That's what I want to see as well. So avoids the defender, stays cool, doesn't bail out, doesn't check down. That's an experienced throw. That is an experienced moment for a Clemson QB who is young and getting into the swing of things. So if he can make throws like that, game after game after game after game this year, Clemson will be in a good place. So just looking forward to seeing it all come together. And, I'm sure he's got a chip on his shoulder for this year to prove anyone that's doubting him wrong. And then on defense, how about that? Oh, here we go. Another one with a clip here. So we'll go Jaden Lucas coming out the DB there, had a pass defended against Wake Forest and Charleston Southern, and then 2 tackles against Florida State. Now, this is not the typical type of play that I'll show you, but I did find it interesting because it may not be the type of play that shows up on a stat sheet, but it shows the type of impact you can have. This is against Charleston Southern last year. So hike it off. Just jars him, and then that's not Jaden Lucas. That is Wade Woodaz, right? Jaden Lucas is the one that knocked the ball loose and just jarred that kid. So not this. He rolls out, makes whatever, bang, and then right into the hand. So it's like, how does that show up on the stat sheet, right? Where it's like, it's not a forced fumble because it's listed as a pick 6. It's not a tackle because he didn't go down with the ball. Like, is it technically a pass defended because he got it out? Like, it may not be the type of thing that shows up, but it shows up in the locker room. It shows up, in the quality of player. And, I think that's the type of performance that you'll need as an everyday starter at cornerback. Like, that's the type of play that wins Dabo's trust. And, when it's all said and done, like, that goes a long way for the development of a young Clemson defense. So I'm looking at Jaden Lucas to come together and make that happen this year. But last and certainly least, Free Shoes University. This is how you know this podcast is not biased, because I'd put them in 17th if I could. If this was a biased podcast, I'd put them at the bottom of the conference, but I think FSU goes back to the top. Norvell has turned this program around. They were a laughing stock. They were a dumpster fire, and now they're right now the current champ, right? So 13-1. The 1 was embarrassing, but the 13 wins, were certainly quality. And this is not a discussion of were they not worthy of making the college football playoff. That's not the point of this. That was last season. That was a long time ago. But I'm sure they're out for revenge. They're out for that, the chip on their shoulder there, and they're ready for this upcoming year. So multiple style offense and 4-3 defense, and then of course they just abuse the transfer portal. Why recruit, right? Why make home visits where you can just pluck the players that you want out of the portal there? Now if you look at the offense all together. Let's see who they got and how they got them from. Running back room is solid. I'll give them that. They bring in Roydell Williams from Bama, and they pair him with Lawrence Tolafili. So the two of them is a 1-2 punch. FSU is going to be able to run the ball this year. I don't think they had too much of a problem with it last year, but it's definitely an above average running back room for sure. They get DJ Uiagalelei coming back. I know we just talked about Clemson. That's where he started out. And then he left for Oregon State, had some success there. And he's looking to cap off his time in college over with FSU. I think DJ's, again, a solid quarterback. So I think there's a lot of potential there, a lot of good opportunity. I think if you can harness the best of what he did at Clemson and the best of what he did at Oregon State, he'll be all right at FSU. I think it's a step down from Jordan Travis, but it's still a quality, experienced quarterback coming in to help the program. The offensive line is good. I'll give them their flowers there. Darius Washington comes back. Maurice Smith. Jeremy Byes. You bring in Richie Leonard from Florida. Trader. So you have 3 starters who came back and an established starter coming in to anchor the line. So everything will be protected for the most part. Everything will be, you got TJ Ferguson coming in from Bama, who's a little bit less experienced, but if you're good enough to play for Bama, you're good enough to play for anyone. So you have 4 established players on the O-line, and then a younger project, so to speak, but someone that can rise to the occasion. The receiver room is the one I got the most concern about, because they bring in Malik Benson from Alabama, but hasn't had a ton of experience. Senior transfer from Bama, so never really saw the field there. I think the number one guy coming back on offense is Ja'Kai Douglas, maybe. I hear there's a lot of hype around Hakeem Williams, but we haven't seen it so far. It might evolve out this year. That might be a good pick for breakout player. We'll see. But overall, there's not a lot of returning production on that side of the ball. Most of the guys graduated or went for league. So Keon Coleman's gone, Johnny Wilson's gone, players like that, and someone's got to fill the gap. Speaking of filling the gap, that's all the defense. There's not a lot of returning production, so to speak, on the defense compared to the rest of the conference. And definitely raises some eyebrows for me. Now, the quality of player FSU brings makes up for the lack of returning production. Let's call it what it is. They bring in Marvin Jones from Georgia, who's a little bit of a project. They bring in Devontae Brown at safety from Miami by way of UCF. They bring in Earl Little from Alabama. So, definitely some up and coming players. But on the D line, Patrick Payton and Josh Farmer are your big two there. At the linebacker room, I would go DJ Lundy. DJ Lundy's legit. I'll go DJ Lundy. And then in the DB room, Fentrell Cypress, Shaheem Brown, Devontae Brown. You got pieces of what this team could be. You got strong indicators of what the team could be. But overall, there's too many questions for me right now to say any one part of this defense is going to be elite. It could be, the player that gets brought into FSU is generally pretty talented, but it's the lack of experience that we've seen so far. And that comes with losing 20, 30 players to graduation in the draft. Someone has to fill their role. The expectation is FSU should take a little bit of a backseat this year. I don't think they take their foot off the pedal. I think FSU goes back to the conference championship and expects to win almost every single game that they're in. So with that, the offensive player I think is going to break out is going to be Jackson West. That's going to be one of your tight ends there. Can't find a whole lot on the kid, but is assumed to be one of the starting tight ends for Bama or for FSU this year. And as a result of that, needs to contribute to that passing game, to that blocking game, everything that is expected of a starting tight end. Haven't seen a whole lot about him so far, but if the expectation is that he's in that starting locker room, he's ready to make that move, that he does so with intent and with action over the course of this upcoming season. So on the defensive side of the ball, it's going to be linear transfer. It's going to be Earl Little Jr. coming in from Alabama, 4-star transfer. A guy that Saban I think was pretty high on, but was just young and not ready to see the field. Right, redshirt sophomore this upcoming year, so it was year 2 last year for him, but should be ready to make that jump in the nickelback role for FSU. Hasn't seen a ton of playing time, but I'm pretty confident he's going to see some playing time at FSU. Pretty sure he's going to make that move for them. So, but yeah, a lot of faith in the guy. 4-star transfer, someone that a lot of big programs are after. And one of the guys from Bama that followed his way over to Tallahassee and is ready to make a name for himself over at FSU. So, with that, just a recap, final standings there. So Stanford, Virginia, Duke, Georgia Tech, Syracuse, Wake Forest, Cal, Pitt, BC, Virginia Tech, SMU, NC State, Miami, Louisville, North Carolina, Clemson, and Florida State. So that's end of year standings. In terms of ability, I think Stanford, Virginia are kind of in their own league. That could get flipped. Duke, Georgia Tech are kind of in their own league. That could get flipped. Syracuse, Wake are kind of, that's interchangeable for me. Cal, Pitt, BC. You wanted to flip that order, I'd be okay with it. Virginia Tech, SMU, NC State, Miami. So what is that? 8 through 5. If you wanted to shuffle that order around, I'd be cool with that too. As the top 3 outside, yeah. So FSU, I think, is your clear number 1 right now, and then Clemson, NC State, Louisville. I could see any of those teams taking that second spot, but we did decide Clemson versus FSU in the conference championship, and we got to pick a winner. So, who wins that game? Don't think about any of the other games leading up to it. Who wins that conference championship down in Charlotte? And I think your answer is another Clemson championship. So I think Clemson gets their revenge, their redemption, another Clemson championship, the all Clemson conference, whatever you want to call it. Clemson's back on the mountaintop this year. I don't think FSU has the juice to repeat. And based on the regular season, if FSU is the number 1 seed, it means FSU beat Clemson. And I think Clemson's going to want that revenge. They're going to have that chip on their shoulder, and they're going to want that playoff spot. So, Clemson, it's yours. Do what you got to do for the ACC, but I think they're taking it home. So, who do you think is going to win? Who do you think is going to do well? Where do you agree? Where do you disagree? Comment your thoughts below. But thanks for tuning in today. Tune in next week as we shift over to the Big Ten Conference. Another conference of some newbies, some powerhouses, the defending champion. Where does that all shake up or shake out? We will determine that next week on the New Year's 6 podcast. So thank you all for listening. Have a great rest of your day, and looking forward to covering it more soon.